Good evening and welcome back to the Mini Performance channel. Today I'm just going to go through the door pockets and how they've been narrowed, and the dash in behind me there. I had a couple of requests on it was 2 videos ago now. It was the one where I was trying to get the cult starting. Somebody asked about the dash, and then in Kev's video on the Gentleman's Motor Racing channel, or the Gentleman's Motor Racing Team channel, he was on about narrowing the door pockets on these Mark 1, and I said I've had that done to mine, so I thought I'd show you and him quickly the difference. Well, I won't be able to show you the difference between a standard door pocket and a narrowed one, because I don't have a standard one here to show you. So here we go. And yes, I have been watching DeBoss garage videos, hence the here we go. So the door pocket has been narrowed, and I think what they basically did was they just chopped it off, moved it in, and then re-welded it. If you can see that bit there at the end of my finger, I think that's the original shaping of this interior panel, and it would have been back here somewhere, and then they've just done some welding to try and get it to fit. It's obviously not the easiest thing to get at with the door skin in place. You're probably better off doing it without the door skin, so you can get a better finishing and a better welding. One issue I've had on, I think it's the other side door actually, is that gap there between there and the door skin was really tight. I'll pull this out, it's a useless pigging thing anyway. Yeah, I think that must be, I don't know if that's standard. I don't know exactly what's happening in the back of there, to be honest. But the problem I've had is that gap between there and there was that tight that I couldn't get the door skin in properly. It must be on the opposite side. So that's something to bear in mind. And the only way I'm going to be able to get the door liner out on the opposite side is to destroy it, because it's such a tight gap in here. So that's what it looks like in there, Kev, if you want to see, and I'll show you the opposite end as well. Turn the light round, and you can see similar sort of thing in there, and you can see the gap there is quite tight. Also, I think as standard, these rubber pipes that drain the water out go down the back of there somewhere. I'd have to go and have a look at my other Mark 1 to see, but that's something to bear in mind, and it makes it hard to fit, and these stupid fillet things never want to fit properly either anymore. But then again, they never want to fit properly anyway, do they? Okay, so that's what the door pocket looks like in its entirety, and you can see where I've got my cage. I've got my door bars right up tight to the door jamb there, the B pillar, and if you can see in there, you can just about see in there, that's how much gap I've got between the outer edge of the foot and the inner sill. There's maybe what, 1 finger. So that's what the gap is down in the bottom of there, if you can sort of see that. I'll just try and move the torch. There's a gap, there you go. You can see that, that's a 1 finger gap. And then as you look here up the side of the A pillar, that's how much gap I've got in there as well. So it's not probably as far out towards the outside of the car as it could be, but it was a case of balancing where that was going to sit and the cutting of the door pockets, and it works really well. You can't get a full drinks bottle in your door pocket anymore. You have to sort of rest it like that. When you're driving along, you can rest the drinks bottle in there and up against the cage, and it doesn't fall out as you're driving. But you can get your proper gin bottle in there as per the original cars. Okay, moving on to the dash. This is the Works replica dash, available from Catmint, Gordon. I'll put a link in the description below. It just bolts in two pieces. There's like the top piece here, which bolts or screws into your top dash rail, and then this front face plate extends underneath, and then there's some alloy brackets on the bottom of that which fasten through your parcel shelf. For dials and gauges, I've got my boost gauge for the supercharger, just a Smith's Volts gauge, Spy Design all temperature, and then a stack rev counter, and then I've got the various switches for windscreen washer, the heater, the heated screen, the fan. The thing with the fan one is it's dual purpose. It's activated both by the switch. Obviously it's not working now because the electrics are off, and the ECU via two relays that are under the dash, and then a nice set of air horns to let people know they're getting in my way. And then that is what they call a P light. Is what I think is what the Works cars had in it. Casts a red glow across there, so you can see these in the dark because they're not lit up. And then this is a telltale control button for the SPA speedo, I think that one's for. And then there's another telltale somewhere for the stack dash. In the side of the driver's side pod, I have my ignition cutout and a cigarette lighter socket, power socket. The problem with that is you can't really use it very well when you're driving. It was a mistake putting it there, and I should just get rid of it really, because it blanks off the oil pressure and water temperature gauge there. From the driver's view, you're looking like this where my finger's pointing, and that anything that's in there gets in the way of that gauge, so that's something to avoid. And then what have I got here? I've got interior lights for the dash. It's a switch that would normally be underneath here, as standard, and that's the control button for the stack rev counter. In the centre, I've got your usual set of switches, lights, wiper, ignition as per normal, and then these inner and outer switches you can see were for the fog lights, the spotlights on the front, whereby I could control them as to which set were on or off. Since the rewire, these are redundant now. I think one of them will just control all of them, and then one switch will be redundant, which I will replace with the brand new headlamp flasher switch that I got off the Mark 1 forum recently. Going across to the other side, again, this dash panel, it doesn't stick out as far as the driver's side one, and all you've got on there is another P light, which you can see just there, which casts a light glow across the switches, so you can see the switches. And then I've got a switch from the intercom, switch for the map light, which is in the door. There's the map light, and then an interior light switch, which is that one. And then that is that's the fuse for this rally trip. And then I got a power socket in there, which I use to run sat navs off, and or basically anything that needs a 5 volt 1 amp output. So there's my phone holder where my sat nav sits, and obviously there's your rally trip sitting over on that side. Goes back through to the in behind the instrument binnacle in here. Obviously this is one of the digital speedos, and it has it doesn't have the normal speedo cable. It has electrical cable, which picks up a pulse. And what I've done is I've teed off that electrical pulse to a little interface circuit board, which is a standard part that you can get from Brant's, who do the rally trip, and that sends the pulse as well as to the speedo. It goes to the rally trip, and then the rally trip just gets calibrated from those pulses. You drive over a set distance, I think it's a kilometre or something like that, and it counts up the number of pulses, and then you tell it that's a mile or whatever, and that's how you calibrate your trip meter, and that works really well. So that's pretty much the dash. Again, this one's held in the same way as the driver's side. You can see the 3 screws that hold it in, and then there's the alloy panels that come off the bottom, like an L shaped or something like that. They come off the bottom and then fixing through underneath the dash. But underneath the dash there is just the ECU and 10 mile of wiring and relays. For the instrumentation in my central binnacle, again, obviously I've got the oil and water temperature dual SPA gauge with a control button there. This is the digital dash. I can't remember where. Oh, there's the control button for that one over there, that little black one. That's how you reset the or set the trip. And then that one over there is the air fuel gauge, just a single air fuel gauge, and then the lambda for that is basically just down here under the floor, just in front of the gear stick, because that's the only place I could put it, because when you've got the remote gear change you haven't got room for the lambda to stick out from the exhaust. So that's the central binnacle. Okay, so would I change anything on that dash behind me? Not really. As I said, the only thing that was a mistake was the cigarette lighter socket, which is in the driver's line of sight. I might have positioned some of those switches a little bit different, but yeah, because sometimes when you're driving along and you want to try and hit the heater switch and stuff, it's a little bit vague as to where it's at because it's in behind the steering column. But apart from that, I'm really happy with it. It wasn't too dear. I can't remember how much it was, like 50 quid or something like that, and it's really nice, nicely finished crackle paint, and it's lasted really well. It's taken a fair bit of abuse. One thing you might notice just on this corner is that to cut a section out to clear the roll cage and to make sure I could still, you know, get at it easily if I needed to, and it's been in and out quite a few times, and the wiring's a typical mess in behind, but I've not really had that much in the way of issues, touch wood. So yeah, so that's the dash. And the door pockets, as I said, there's not much to see in the door pockets. They're just chopped off and then re-welded further in to clear the door bars, which is why you need your cage temporarily mounted when it goes to the body shop, or but in your case Kev, you're just doing it yourself so it doesn't apply. Yeah, so that's it. If anybody wants to know any more particular bits and pieces about the car, just give me a shout in the comments and I'll answer your questions. I've got various bits to do on the car next. I need to fully finish measuring up the new alternator pulley, because I want to get a smaller one so that it actually works and produces voltage. I was going to say boost, but that would have been different. Produces voltage at idle, because it doesn't until about 2000, because it's turning too slowly. So I need to change that, get that measured up. I've got some injectors to put in now, some bigger ones to boost up that measly 174 horsepower. They just need modifying to fit into the injector pockets on the plenum, which is just a 10-minute job per injector. And I've also been trying to work out how I can get a charge cooler in that engine bay, and it's far from easy, far from easy. I've looked at various designs and I'm just struggling for space. I'm going to have to move things to get stuff to work, or get a custom one made or something. I don't know yet, but it's going to have to be a charge cooler, I think, because there's no room for an intercooler. Yeah, so I've been trying to work out what to do with the gearbox. Now the problem is that it's only a 3 synchro straight cut gearbox in there, or gear set in there at the moment, which I really like, but it lacks a tall enough final drive. To change the final drive, I can't go any higher on that age of limit slip diff, so I'd need a new style diff. But then the actual gear set itself probably isn't very strong either. So then I would need the Mini Space heavy duty gear set to do, which is an A+ design for a rod change box. And I'd still need to change the diff to run a higher final drive, because the supercharger will pull a lot higher final drive, because it is really hard on the car and on the engine, going everywhere at 4,000 revs when I do these not big trips, but biggish trips. So yeah, I'm really stuck in a quandary at the moment. I'm trying to price up my options and work out what's best. If I could get like a hybrid box in my existing casing and with a fresh diff and the heavy duty gear set, it's whichever way I try and think of what I'm going to do with the gearbox, it's going to cost a lot of money. You're probably talking the thick end of £2,000 for whatever I try and think of doing, and there's better things to be spending that money on, so I'm sort of stuck at the moment. And if I do fix the injectors and sort out a charge cooling system, then I'm probably producing even more power. I know it's all at the top end, but there's going to be an upshift in the bottom end, I would hope, especially with the change to the newer style injectors. I'm hoping the feeling at the bottom end and the torque would increase at the bottom end, because it's a bit lacking at the moment. It almost feels gutless, which sounds ridiculous when I've got 174 horsepower in from a 1293, that I'm saying it's gutless, but all that power is right at the top end, where the supercharger overcomes the efficiency of the 8-port head, which also made me think about putting a different 8-port head on, the road head with the smaller valves, and thinking that way it would produce more boost earlier on. There's just so many permutations, and as I said, there's many times before, nobody else has done this, so anything I try is first try, and it's all expensive, and time, which I don't have. Money I have, time I don't have. So yeah, that's it for today. Next video will probably be, what will it be? Working on Austin, the green 8-port. I've got to do that oil seal in between the gearbox and the engine, and I've got to take off everything on that side of the engine, all the cam gears and all that sort of stuff. Mustn't swear. All that stuff has to come off. So the next video might be some time-lapsey stuff of that. It might be a couple of weeks before I get it all done, because it's going to take quite a few days, and then I'll stitch it all together and do something like that, or even perhaps it might end up over 2 videos, but we'll see how we come on.